Welcome to my channel.
You're a beloved neurosurgeon who works in Detroit. You have a large 9-bedroom mansion inside of this city, and you live there alone, and you have voiced concerns in the past about living alone and being a little nervous about it. Your patients love you, your neighbors love you, and one day no one hears from you again. Your family calls for a wellness check, and what police finds leads them to your demise. This is the case of Dr. Devon Hoover.
The death of a well-known doctor. Investigators say 53-year-old Devon Hoover worked as a neurosurgeon at Ascension Hospital in Detroit. Good to have you with us here at 11. I'm Devon Skillian.
I'm Kimberly Gill. Officers responded to a home Sunday night on West Boston Boulevard for a welfare check. When officers went inside, they found the doctor shot to death. Victor Williams is live in the Boston Edison district tonight with reaction from neighbors who are stunned.
Yeah, Kimberly and Devon, the death of this neurosurgeon has sent shockwaves throughout the community. Many people are wondering who could have done such a thing to this man.
This is so insane, and I hate that it's come to this.
Ascension, Michigan Dr. Devon Hoover was found dead in his home on West Boston Boulevard in the Boston Edison community.
Devon has been in this area for a very long time, and a lot of people know Devon. He's hosted so many things for people to come by.
Right now, police can't say what led up to Hoover being killed. All we know is that the grisly discovery was made when the 53-year-old was found after a welfare check on Sunday.
This should happen to no one who was just minding their own. This guy was a worker bee.
His absence will definitely be felt in the hospital in which he works. A spokesperson with Ascension, Michigan sent us the following statement on his death, which reads, quote, Devon Hoover was a dedicated and well-respected member of the Ascension, Michigan family and will be greatly missed by our community. Our sincerest condolences and heartfelt prayers are with his family, friends, and fellow associates during this incredibly difficult time.
And they're not giving up any hope in regards to this. And, you know, friends, family, former patients, and neighbors are frustrated that whoever killed Dr. Hoover in April is still out there. Dr. Hoover was found, again, murdered with 2 gunshot wounds in the head in his attic by police after a welfare check that was requested by his family. Volunteers with Crime Stoppers hit the pavement yesterday, putting flyers on cars, utility poles, and then also dropping them off at houses and local businesses. And those who live nearby are frustrated that police did not canvass the neighborhood after his murder.
And the fact that no one talked to any of the neighbors, no one talked to this community, and that's how you get to points of information and connect the dots for this murder. Yeah, no leads, and the person who committed this crime is still walking around, and this community is still vulnerable.
They are. They were used to seeing the lights on at this beautiful mansion all the time. Gorgeous. I mean, it's in Detroit, multi-million-dollar mansion, meticulous grounds. As a neurosurgeon, he really took pride in that place, and he let the public come in and use it for events and things, charities, etc. But look closely at that picture. Look at the top, the attic light that's on. This is the part that's a bit weird, because the neurosurgeon who lived there was murdered 2 months ago, and his body was dragged face down up to that attic, that very spot where that light is on. They have not found who is responsible for doing this to him, putting 2 bullets in the back of his head, wrapping him in a plastic sheet and a rug, and then trying to stash him up there. The family wanted to put the lights on in the home to honor the beauty of the home and remind people that we're still looking for a killer here. The light at the attic there, it was probably their idea, but it is eerie when I look at it and think of what went on behind that window. Here's what I can tell you, that People magazine has said that a neighbor said that Dr. Devon Hoover, the murder victim here, had mentioned living alone in the mansion sometimes made him nervous. It's interesting. His sisters, Lila and Lori, have been frustrated with the slow progress towards finding who did this. And so they are now putting together a GoFundMe to get a $20,000 reward for information leading to the person who did it, who dragged him to that light up in the attic. It's still so curious, though. How is it possible that they haven't found someone 2 months later? Joining me now is Matt Clayson. He's a friend of Dr. Hoover, who alongside Devon's family is working towards that $20,000 goal. What are the police saying, Matt, about the latest in this effort to find who did this?
Not much, really. And that's actually okay. I think the police are playing it very smart here, where they're not giving too much for people to try to escape from or to try to spin the story. They're keeping their cards close. And I think that's what you want in something like this.
And Matt, you and his sisters have put together this effort to raise money, the GoFundMe. If you raise more than $20,000, because I know that he was beloved, you know, Dr. Hoover was such a friend of the community. He was so friendly to everybody. His home was beautifully kept. He had an aura about him. My guess is that you may go well past that $20,000 reward. What will happen with the excess funds?
So the excess gets split between two organizations that were very close to Dr. Hoover's heart, one which is the Michigan Opera Theater, Detroit Opera House. The other is the Fraternité de Notre Dame, which is a Catholic sisterhood who was actually teaching Devon to learn French. And so he loved France. He was learning French. And we would talk about his French lessons together when we see each other, because I spoke French for, 8 years and still speak. And it's just something close to him. And they were generous to him, and he would like to be generous back.
That's nice. I only have a few seconds left, but the photo of the mansion with the lights on, with the attic light on, what was the meaning behind it?
I would assume, and this is just me guessing, it's that his light is still with us.
Sean Lay spent the day trying to learn more about this. Sean, strange move for someone to try to break into a crime scene.
A week after this horrific murder that shook up so many friends and family members of the doctor and coworkers, of course. Police tonight, yes, confirming there was a break-in at the doctor's home here in Boston Edison, but they're also confirming that items were stolen from the doctor's home. It was last Sunday family of neurosurgeon Dr. Devon Hoover were concerned, very concerned. Friends tell me when he did not arrive to visit his mother. DPD was called. A welfare check was made inside the doctor's sprawling Boston Edison home. Once officers were inside, something they spotted led them to check the home's attic. That's where the body of the doctor was found, wrapped in plastic. Someone shooting the doctor multiple times, killing him. Sunday funeral services were held for Dr. Hoover, and on that same day of his services, it was discovered that Hoover's home became a crime scene for a second time. Someone broke into his home. Tonight, police believe things were taken by the person who broke in. Right now, it's unclear what those items are.
Here's some of the information that was gathered from the scene of this murder, which again was this mansion owned by the doctor. The decedent, Dr. Hoover, was found nude and in a prone position in a crawl space in his home, covered with a comforter, sheet, and rug. So not in the middle of the living room, not in his bedroom, was put into the crawl space. His clothing consisted of a black sock on the right foot. Fingernail clippings and samples for a rape kit were obtained and retained. Bobby Chacon, I'll begin with you. Welfare check is how this really began, right? Right. You go inside this house, he's found in a crawl space. What does that tell you, if anything, about what may have happened or who, what type of person we may be looking for here?
Well, it tells me a couple of things. It tells me, obviously, they wanted the body not to be found. They wanted to hide it as long as they could. It also tells me they may have some familiarity with the house. A house that big, the crawl spaces are usually way up. Obviously, they're accessed through the upper floors. So depending on where the murder happened, it tells me the person could have been and might likely have been familiar with the house and where that crawl space was. Obviously, they had to have known it was there to put the body there. So that's what you start looking at. You start piecing up, is this someone that's been in the house before? Did they know where this crawl space was? They had to know it was there. Did they stumble across it, or did they know it was there and then bring him there? So preliminarily, you start putting those kind of pieces together.
Joseph Scott Morgan, looking at the scene here and what happened, they don't believe necessarily that anything was taken, right? You've got this house, and you look at this house, I mean, there are just things of value everywhere. Yeah. Yet they don't believe this was a robbery.
Yeah, what would be the motivation behind this other than I think, at least from my perspective, some kind of intimate connection. The most chilling bit of this, is, as Bobby had mentioned just a moment ago, I think that this speaks to familiarity with a structure this size, 13,000 square feet. But the fact that Dr. Hoover was absent his clothing, that's a kind of a telltale for me. And Caitlin had mentioned earlier in the earlier segment that you've got this covering that's going on. When he's actually discovered in a prone position, which means face down. So his face is certainly not in view. In my experience, when you're working with the dead and you come across a case like this, if the face is obscured in any way, we actually have a term called face covering with that. But they went an extra step, Ben. They covered the body in these layers. I think that we have a sheet. I had heard a comforter as well, and a carpet. So you've got this layering that's going on as well. It just smacks of intimacy to me.
Erica Morris, I want you to take a listen to the Chief of Police, James White.
I'll tell you what led to the welfare check. A member of the family called because he did not show up at an event that he was expected to show up at. When the officers arrived on the scene, they were quickly concerned about some of the things that they saw. And as a result, they went into the home, and the rest is where we find ourselves today.
Erica Morris, the things that they saw, right? They're doing a welfare check, which are relatively common, but they see things that lead them at some point eventually to the attic, to this crawl space. But the things that they saw, crucial in this case.
Crucial, man. What I would expect is that there was some type of an indication of a struggle. Caitlin mentioned it earlier. This home was meticulous, and so for things to be out of place certainly would have caught their attention. I have a friend who's actually in Detroit, who's been working the story on the ground ever since it happened. Talked with her a little bit today, and she really feels that the indicator coming from local law enforcement is very similar to that of what we saw in Moscow, Idaho, was that everybody's kind of assuming that law enforcement isn't doing a whole bunch here. Oh, they really are. They're working a lot behind the scenes. They're remaining tight-lipped because I think they have a really good indicator of who did this, but also they don't want to tip off that individual that they're that close, or that they're as close as they are. This person clearly had familiarity not only with the house, but was comfortable enough to be in it for an extended period of time. We talk about, and I think we're mentioning it later, how long it takes to drag a body with dead weight. This was not an act that was committed in a matter of minutes. So this is definitely someone that felt comfortable enough to have free reign. And I think when they first got into that scene, they saw indicators that something was clearly wrong.
This is just a sad case. Dr. Hoover was loved by his patients, by staff at Ascension Hospital. He was said to have a great bedside manner. And for me, that is very important. The doctor treats you like a person. And so I know he will definitely be missed by his patients. As I was doing research on this case, I found some blogs that spoke about an alternative lifestyle that Dr. Hoover was living. It was rumored that they said a quote-unquote closeted gay person, and that he frequented many adult bookstores, particularly on Detroit's 8 Mile Road. He was into more kinkier sex practices. Again, this is rumored. It's also said too that, and this is a rumor, that his ex-boyfriend's mom was his housekeeper and that he had employed her and still financially supported the ex even after being broken up for 15 years because he was a very generous person.